Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Please do subscribe if you're so inclined to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and also on EEARTS. I have several videos in my head that have been being planned that we're going to get up there. There's a lot to cover today, and going to do it a little differently, breaking it into different topics. And let's just start by saying New York Post has been hacked. And they are investigating the cause. You know, we're entering this time period where we're going to have all sorts of disruptions in our life. That's going to be a given. And, you know, things are really, really ratcheting up on every front. This is a great conditioning. This is part of what we were just discussing. You know, already things are like the framework of however you want to word it. You know, the GR, the N period, W period, O period, it's all in place. And things have been going on for decades, maybe hundreds of years, maybe even longer than that. And I know there's so much that's really hard for people to accept at first, because again, we've been so conditioned to have a certain mindset. Yet it's all there. It's all there. It's all been operating. It's the illusion in our minds that's eroding, if you get what I mean.
You know, what I'm kind of seeing is, you know, if you take a something like a quilt, for example, and say you're sewing together a quilt and you create all the holes to make the sewing with, and you put the thread in, you only simply have to pull that thread tight to pull all of that together, but in the meantime all of it's still separate. So I hope that gave somebody a visual, because this is complicated, and visuals are very important for our path and for our sovereignty, for our freedom. We need to be able to see things so that we can change things to our preferred liking.
Yes. And so you remember how PayPal was going to find people and then they weren't? They retracted? Well, now they've stuck it back in, according to multiple sources. I haven't seen any confirmation, but I just wanted to put it out there that I've seen several people on Twitter running with this. So we'll see. We'll keep looking. This is the actual language. If you're a seller and receive funds for transactions that violates the acceptable use policy, then in addition to being subject to the above actions, you'll be liable to PayPal for the amount of PayPal's damages caused by your violation of the acceptable use policy. You acknowledge and agree that $2,500 US per violation of the acceptable use policy is presently a reasonable minimum estimate of PayPal's actual damages, including but not limited to internal administrative costs incurred by PayPal to monitor and track violations, damage to PayPal's brand and reputation, penalties imposed upon PayPal by its business partners resulting from users' violation, considering all currently existing circumstances, including the relationship of the sum to the range of harm to PayPal that reasonably could be anticipated, because due to the nature of violations of acceptable use policy, actual damages would be impractical or extremely difficult to calculate. PayPal may deduct such damages directly from any existing balance in any PayPal account you control. So, you know, again, back to alternatives, guys. And really, this is what it's all about now, is alternatives.
And might I just kind of point out and remind us all that many times these big corporations will do something to make something so extremely unacceptable, will go running the other direction and use something else that they may have set up. So we have to be very unique in our approach and not just go to the next easiest thing, because that's what they want. They like to herd us like sheep.
Yeah, well, I believe that like the first one that you said, how about Venmo? And I was like, well, I think PayPal owns Venmo. And then when you start looking at a lot of these alternatives, they're all owned by the same bigger companies for the most part. There could be some smaller ones, but you know what? They'll be bought out in 6 months' time if they're not now. I mean, this is what happens. There's a trend underway. You could see, again, it's just like the political system. We have to get out of the whole system oh, I'm going back to the right side. I'm not going to support the left side, and vice versa. You're still always going to end up supporting the system. So what is the alternative, to not vote? Well, ultimately, the alternative has to be making the system obsolete. Now, granted, it's going to take a little while. The system has been in place a long time, far longer than most people realize. We've talked about China buying up billions in U.S. farmland. Lawmakers scrambling to stop them. Really? Yeah, really? Well, at least give you that look and appearance. Yeah. And this article is from July 20th, 2021. There's a much, much bigger picture underway. Chinese-owned farmland in the U.S. comes under scrutiny. I mean, we saw thousands of acres right on the Mexican border bought up. We saw right next to key military points up in North Dakota. It's, again, part of a bigger plan. And Bill Gates is reportedly the largest farmland owner in America. There's a lot about him. Now, again, he is in control. He sold Microsoft. Do you think he's still not in control? Or at least his controllers are still in control? They are. All these people are, again, under the same umbrella. Why is, Bill Rockefeller Gates buying up farmland? Well, that's the question. Why? Because he knows what's next, the coming carbon social credit currency. Over 100 countries, and again, this is an article from March this year. Over 100 countries, including the U.S., want to centralize banking and take control over your financial decisions. We've had some control over, small things. Do I buy the red rug or the green rug? Soon it's all going to be based on carbon credits. So even if you have, again, the money in your account, you're going to need the carbon credits in order to buy something. And really, this has already been transitioning, and I guess it would depend on what industry you find yourself in. You might not look at all this as so foreign. You might say, well, yeah, I'm already aware of all this. I see it every day. Digital tech helps farmers make money with carbon credits. How to buy carbon credits. In 2022, this is from October 7th this year, 4 easy steps. Create a crypto wallet. Again, if you think cryptocurrency is going to be our savior, because there's only going to be the governmental controlled ones. And again, cryptocurrency, that's nothing. It truly is nothing. It's all air based on agreements. Well, it's imaginary currency. It's like playing a video game. But so is really, the whole system right now.
It is. So, our creativity needs to start taking front and center. Our ability to create and co-create needs to start moving up toward the front, because they're doing everything that they're doing to make sure that their bases are completely covered and they're comfortable and they can stay in their mansions and eat what they want and not have to worry about things like eating crickets. They're watching out for themselves. So we have to make that extra effort to be creative with one another and basically take away their whoopee and what is their blanket, sorry, it's baby talk, the thing that comforts them is actually us. It's us. We are their comforter. And if we take us away, they're left with nothing.
Yeah, they're used to being the ladies and lords up in the castle. And now that is your CEOs, your COOs, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's brokers out there already offering, carbon credits. And, this is an illusion. The whole system's an illusion, but it's an illusion that's going to be forced on the world. And when we look at what's really going on, China buys stake in a Hamburg port. This is Hamburg, Germany. The German government has approved the controversial sale to shipping giant Costco. And here you have, like, war might break out between Russia and Germany, Russia and NATO, China, Russia, and NATO, and here you have China buying the ports. This is happening and has been happening for a very, very long time all over the globe. Africa, South America, Latin America, even in, again, the U.S. and in NATO countries. So the people that say things like, oh, well, Russia and China could never attack us, they just are lacking information. They don't understand the bigger picture because, again, the house always wins. When you walk into a Vegas casino, your chances are very, very small. You might luck out for one night, but if you go back every night, you're going to end up being out in the street with a little tent over your head if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. The house always wins. They make all the rules. They make all the moves. They back all the right fighters. They get other fighters to take a dive. Remember that old term? Take a dive. Wow, did you see that punch? It didn't even look like it hit him, but he's out cold.
And they might even make it appear that other people are winning, but they're just not.
Absolutely. This is all deception. And again, if you really think that number 46 is making any logical decisions on his own, oh man, we really got to get you some caffeine infusions.
Definitely.
Russian LNG exports to Europe exploded this summer. So, again, when Biden said the ruble is rubbish, yeah, his words were rubbish. That's all that's been proven to be rubbish because everything has backfired. It's apparently backfired, but no, it's actually gone along totally to plan. Because this is all about the disintegration and destruction of the NATO powers so that we can have a one world system that looks exactly like the CCP system. This is the ultimate goal. And out of the rubble, that's how they're going to build it. They need the rubble. They need the war. They need the economic aspect of it, driving humanity to its knees, getting humanity to the point where it's just too tired, and humanity acquiesces. This is what they're banking on. It's like the fighter that tries to take the other fighter deep into a fight because he knows that fighter might be strong and powerful, but if he could outlast him, he's just going to collapse, and then it's over.
Well, keep in mind, too, with these controllers, understand that they know our whole biological makeup. They understand, which way our brains are going to turn. They understand our tendencies. And honestly, one human tendency is the tendency to be lazy and take the easier way. At least it perceives to be the easier way. Get a dishwasher instead of doing dishes, things of that nature. So they are able to sell us things like dishwashers, microwaves, so we don't have to cook as long. Fast food, so we don't have to spend 2 hours on a meal for our family. But do you see the damage that it causes? So I think it's about turning our perspective back into something that was much, much earlier in our time, where we could spend more time, quality time with the family. The kids would go out to the vegetable garden, get the vegetables, and cut them up with mom, and just everybody sort of working together. And that was a really beautiful time. And I would like to try to envision something like that.
Absolutely. So U.S. energy executives told Jennifer Granholm that shuttered crude oil refineries won't restart, Valero's chief executive officer Joe Gordon said on Tuesday. His comments were made to the U.S. Energy Secretary at a recent White House meeting with energy executives. The one interesting thing that came out of it, too, was there was a consideration for the ability to restart refining capacity that's been shut down. And I think the general sentiment was it's not going to happen. So limited U.S. refinery capacity, right, is again something in this environment that would make you think, well, shouldn't that be one of our top priorities? Shouldn't it? And what I'm going to show you next is interesting as well. Again, this is all about hamstringing the upcoming conflict. It's creating the conflict. It's hamstringing the conflict. Again, so that, you always want a good betting line when you're betting on a fight. And what's happening right now is that's all being put into play. Qatar Energy says we'll be selling 70% of the liquefied natural gas produced at the facility in Texas. And you might say, wait a minute, Qatar, it looks like Qatar. Now, I remember from the Gulf War, Qatar, everybody was like, call it Qatar. Qatar Energy says we'll be selling 70% of the gas produced in Texas. What are they doing with controlling the gas produced in Texas, right? This is a small Arab country that's really rich. Well, yeah, it's fascinating when you look deeply in there. They're already operating, and this is what Cindy was saying to me when I was explaining this to her. They're already operating out of the one world order. This is all for us. This whole illusion, again, it's an illusion of separate nation states. The corporations control the nation states, and certain families control the corporations. Those certain families are controlled by very, very dark energies, as we're talking about. Ultimately, when we talk about that mark of the beast and they say it's a human number, really, when we get to the top of the structure, it's not human, and there's nothing humane about it.
No, not at all. Not at all. They're very animalistic, very cold-blooded, very, here's the goal, let's reach it. Doesn't matter who or what we have to knock over on our way. It's very narcissistic, and in such a way that the whole relationship from us and our governing government is very narcissistic and gaslighting and covert. All of these really unhealthy things. But how do we get past that? And I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it 1,000,000 more times. We have to turn and work on ourselves, work on healing our own emotional state. Many of us have really been traumatized by simple things, or we thought it was simple, just going to school. How many of you still have nightmares about missing your class? Or not being able to be somewhere on time? An old job that you really hated and have a nightmare that you're still there. These are things of trauma to the brain when we are recollecting them in our sleep. We're still trying to work through them. So give yourself that understanding to say, hey, this was done and this is not okay. This is not okay. And heal that energy and allow that energy to just sit there for a little while you process it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to... this is such a tiny little nation. It's a small little nation. You can see it's right there. Just think about the power of this nation. If we're talking about like a little state like Delaware or Rhode Island, some of these states that, hey honey, where are we? Oh, we're in Delaware. Hey honey, 5 minutes later, where are we? Oh, well, we're in Virginia now, or we're in Maryland. It's that small, yet it's rich. It's really rich. Actually, it's something that maybe I'll look into a little bit more, is the establishment of this country, because something tells me this was totally put together by the elites, for the elites. It's rich. I mean, how can you say otherwise? This tiny little piece of real estate. 4th highest GDP per capita in the world, 6th highest GNI per capita. There's only 313,000 citizens and 2.3 million expatriates. That's why this has been set up for. So there's only 313,000 people that are there indigenously. This is where everybody's going when they're expatting. So it feels like, this could be your center point right here. Think about it, controlling the world economically from this area. And of course, Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. This is something I really haven't looked into, although I was talking with David Devine before, and we were talking about where are they going to center? Where are they going to center themselves financially? Because New York's not going to be the financial capital of the world anymore. And that won't be Beijing. It won't be London. You know, this could be it. Interesting. So, sorry, guys. Totally got off on a tangent. Didn't expect to there. But again, this is a state-run energy company. Cutter Energy. State-run. This is reeking the F word.
Yeah.
F-A. Yes, the F-A word. Think Mussolini. So, selling 70% produced in the U.S. So this is Texas liquefied natural gas that is not controlled by anybody in Texas. It's controlled by Qatar, this small country of 2.3 million expats. And let's start seeing who these expats are and what fields they're in and their ties to certain other companies. So, you know, this is ExxonMobil and Qatar Energy have been working together. And again, you know, all these companies, they're all intertwined, intertied. It's a mess, but it's a mess on purpose because again, they try to always control things, but we got to dig deep. And a lot of times we end up finding, you know, dead ends. But, you know, who are, I should say, the top ExxonMobil shareholders? Well, BlackRock and Vanguard, 1 and 2. There you go again, BlackRock and Vanguard. And they're controlling the Texas natural gas supply as well, and to a high degree here. And Texas, by the way, leads U.S. in number of farms. It also leads in foreign-bought agricultural land, as we were talking about with China. But there's other nations too. Actually, Canada is the largest holder, but there's a whole bunch of others as well. You know, again, if we look to Texas for freedom, they've already thought about all this. They've thought about everything we could think of, pretty much. So it's just a matter of willpower and resolve. That's the thing that they're not counting on. So silver right now is at $19.80 an ounce. And if you look at it here, this is going back to 1992. Look at, you know, the last great economic situation we had. Look where it peaked up here, over at $40, $44.92. That's way up. That's still a lot of growth to go. You know, silver, I think, wouldn't be a bad thing to invest in, but when we were talking to David Devine, DAP 2030, before, he was saying how it's being pulled out of the market. It's just disappearing. And this is what this article is talking about. As physical silver demand soars, bullion dealers offer huge buyback premiums. Huge, like $10 over. Yeah, that should tell you it's going to soar. I mean, really soar. And we're getting close, you know. So this is all about the big GR, so to speak, which is closing in on us as we speak. And look to Argentina, as tourists are paying with giant wads of cash. Inflation nears 100%. Yeah, again, now I'm starting to see it in different things. And what I am seeing is a lot of, because I get real estate notifications every day from a whole bunch of different sources, big drops, like houses dropping 20%, 25%, massive markdowns, and almost feels too good to be true. And I know we're not there yet. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. So if you are situated properly, you could take advantage of what the elites are going to take advantage of on a massive scale. Maybe you could find your own dream couple acres somewhere in the middle of nowhere that you could have as, in the worst case scenario, a fallback plan. And just, we're going to need to grow our own food, guys. That's the basic thought to get across. You can grow food in cities. Our brother David in the UK, we've done videos sharing what he does. He lives in a flat. He's on a fixed income. This man is just amazing in so many ways, and we love him a bunch. He's such an inspiration, and he grows like 70-80% of his food. If he couldn't buy food, he would be okay. And he lives in an apartment.
Mm-hmm. He does it all. He's amazing. And you know, one thing that people might run into is sometimes we have little nuisances if you have a lot of plants inside, but we're going to have to decide what is more of a nuisance. You know, we just really have to decide. Is it going to be going to the store and getting foods that are contaminated, or is would you rather have the ability to grow at home? And to me, that's just something that we're doing more and more and more. We have like all kind of plants inside right now, and it's actually quite beautiful. There's
literally peppers and tomatoes growing 1 foot away from my computer. Not even 1 foot. They're like 9 inches away from my computer.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, like Cindy was like, I think that they're done. I was like, no, they're not done yet. And it got colder out, and so I actually dug up out of the garden a bunch of them to try to salvage, and brought in some from the greenhouse because the winds were really picking up. But the greenhouse made it through 40 to 60 mile an hour gusts the other night. And these are all resprouting. I'm looking at a whole bunch of brand new tomatoes growing. We got peppers on there as well. So, you know, hey, every little bit of sunlight is going to be utilized. And we only have a couple windows, 3 windows that are of any value in this house, because, you know, this is a tiny house. It's less than 700 square feet. And I know typically that might not qualify as a tiny house. But again, you know, it's utilizing whatever space you can. And we still do have stuff growing out in the yard as well. We have one more watermelon that's in the fridge right now to eat. But you can do amazing things. You really, where there's a will, there's a way. It's just that simple. And what we're facing, again, the future is today. The future is today. This is just showing, again, if one of these was walking down the road, you might get a weird vibe. You might not even notice. And we look at 46 and we wonder how many of them are there. I think a lot of people would agree. It's obvious it's not just one 46. There's more than one 46. Obviously. And there could be some of 46 that are very much like this.
You know, I mean, it's just, if we're seeing this now, you know, it's been out for a very, very long time. And not just in the computer sense either. There's different biological forms that we look at that, you know, I think now we can fathom. Now we can, looking at the technology. But just remember, if we're looking at it, they're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, this is nothing. Absolutely nothing. So again, as always, guys, thanks for your support over on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without your support over there. Stay prepared. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.